Hi, I'm Josh Hockman with Park Industries Customer Service Department. On this video, we are going to show you how to square your bridge on a Saberjet. This will also work on your Voyager. It'll be the same steps. So to start out with, you're going to want to remove your cover. It is a 9/16 socket you'll need. We will set that to the side. So to start out with here, we are going to lift our gear up out of the rack. So a 3/4 inch socket you'll need for this. So we're just going to loosen all 4 bolts here. And then I'm going to keep my socket on one of the top bolts. And I'm just going to take a 1/2 inch extension, put it in the end of the gear there. And I'm just going to lift up and then tighten up the top bolt. I'm going to do that on both sides so I know it's secure. Now you can see my gear is out of my rack here. Our gears are still lifted up out of our rack. We came to the back center of the machine here. This is our Y-axis motor, and this goes to a gearbox, which then goes to the drive shafts out to each gear on the Y-axis. So we're going to just remove our plate here to access everything. And what we need to do is disengage the, we need to loosen the couplers up that are holding the drive shaft to the gearbox and motor so that we can properly re-square our machine. Now, if you have power on, do not remove your power cable. If your power is off, you are welcome to take that off if you want, but it really doesn't get too much in the way here. So from here then, we'll do just show you what we're looking at here. It's a kind of a hard camera angle, but these are, so here's our Y-axis motor. This is our Y-axis gearbox. And here is the drive shafts coming out right in there. And these black couplers right here are what we want to loosen up so that we can rotate the gear at the end and drop the teeth of the gear perfectly into the rack. And what I'm going to do is I'm only going to loosen up the drive shaft side. So these 2 bolts are holding the drive shaft side. These 2 are holding the gearbox side. So I'm loosening these 2 bolts, and then our gears are still up out of the rack. So we can drive our machine in the Y-axis, positive or negative, whichever way you can go, and it will spin the gears and everything. And there's also 2 bolts on the other side going the opposite direction, so it clamps that tight. So we are going to loosen 4 bolts per drive shaft, so per side there. So we'll loosen them up. Once I have them loose, we'll come back and do our next step. Okay, now that we have our couplers by our gearbox disconnected, we are going to remove our bellow covers. So you'll just remove these thumb screws. Should be 3 on each side for each bellow cover. And we're just gonna remove these bellow covers off of here. We gotta make sure our bridge is square. So you can see our rubber bumper here. And what we're gonna do is we're just pushing in the center of the bridge so it's nice and straight, and we are gonna push the machine forward until we are pushed up against up against that rubber bumper. So you just want some light pressure there on that. You may need to disconnect your rear bellow covers. If it keeps pulling back, the bellow covers might pull that. And once you get that, then we can go into the gears. So we're just gonna disconnect ours real quick here to show you, because there's a gap there. And there now without that bellow cover pulling on the machine, then our gap gets taken up. So then once we get that, we want to come to our gear here and we want to drop our gear into our rack. So I'm going to just line up, spin that gear, so it looks like the tooth will drop right into the rack there. So I'm going to loosen my top bolts. And I'm gonna keep this also in here so it doesn't slam down hard, and slowly let that slide into the gear into the rack there. There we go. So now what you're looking for is that your tooth is seated nice in there. Your teeth are not angled, that it's making a nice mesh down in here with them. Once you get that seated in, we can tighten up the 4 bolts. Once we have our 4 bolts tight, then now we will go on the other side and duplicate the same thing to set that gear into the rack. So we'll get that done, and then we'll be back to show you how the process of getting the machine off the limit and referencing it. Okay, so now that our gears are tight into our rack, everything is bolted down tight at the end there. We're gonna come back to our Y-axis motor area here, and we are gonna tighten these down. So once again, it is a 4mm, and we're gonna torque them down. So you can use a torque wrench just to barely get them snug, or use a regular wrench, but then once you get to the torque, sometimes it is easier if you maneuver, because it is a tight area here, and torque your bolts and have that torque wrench all the way in there. So you'll be able to see here, we can get at the bolts facing up very easily. I used an Allen wrench just to barely snug up the bolts on the other side, just putting light pressure on. We don't want to put too much, don't want to break that bolt. But just some light pressure, and then we'll torque that down, and then we'll get that machine moved back a little bit and get them properly torqued. Proper torque spec is 84 inch-pounds. So 84 inch-pounds for them small bolts. So we'll get that torqued, and then we'll be able to show you how you can move your machine, get it to move if it's not moving, and referencing here. Okay, so now that we have our coupler is tight to what we could get to, now we can move the machine back, and then we can get to the bolts on the other side of the couplers for the Y-axis there. So first thing we're going to check here, we're just looking at the screen. So right now we're all the way forward. So we can see that our reference prox for the Y-axis is grayed out. That's because we're all the way to our max limit, because we are right on the bumpers here. Some machines you can move the Y-axis without having to move the prox. So it all depends on which Saberjet you have here and if you're able to do that. So you can just try your Y-axis joystick or pendant and make sure you go in the positive direction. Do not go negative so we crash into the bumpers hard there, or push them bumpers hard. So just go Y positive. If yours moves back, then you can skip the next couple minutes here and you just jump to the auto referencing would be your next step. If yours will not move with this reference prox grayed out like this, then there's an option we can do here would be to come to your y-axis prox here. So this is your y-axis reference prox. So what I did here, I already do have it loosened up, 11/16 wrench, and just loosen that bottom nut. Try not moving that top one. A good idea also would be to take a tape measure. So ours from the plate to the right underneath the electrical knurled connection here is about 1.5 inches, just under that. So most of them should be the same, but take a measurement of yours first so that we get it set to the same spot. And then we are going to just loosen up. Try and do this so you guys can see it yet, but we're going to loosen the bottom nut. Once your bottom nut is loose, you should be able to pull that up high enough that you can get the lights to turn on. And then on the screen, you can double check your diagnostics. And you can see that that is lit up green. So if I drop it down, it'll turn gray. Pull it up, it'll light up green. If you do that, then you'll be able to take your pendant and move that in the Y positive direction. So we're just gonna drive that off of the flag to tell, the flag is to tell it that it's all the way in the Y forward position here. So we're gonna drive it off of the flag here. We can put it back down, we can see we're still lit up. We're not on that flag anymore. So then we can just tighten up that prox. And I'm just making sure I'm not touching my bottom or my top nut at all, and I only adjusted the bottom. So snug that up so it holds that prox in place. We can double check, make sure I did not move. We are right there, and I'm also just gonna slowly drive forward, Y negative, and just look to make sure that my prox would not hit my block down here and clip that tip of that prox off when it drives forward. So now that we have that lit up, we're driven back a little bit. We will come back to our screen, and we are going to go to our advanced setup. Okay, so I have my pendant active. I'm going to deactivate that. Enable my arbor. And now we're just going to auto-reference the y-axis, so that will teach it where the front of the machine is. And we'll hit yes. And OK to that. Now that machine's slowly going to drive forward. You see that turns black. That means that that prox is reading right now, and it's slowly driving back until that will turn green again, so it will reference it right off of that prox. When it does reference, your system will shut off, so you'll have to turn your system back on. But now we are referenced, and we will be able to continue setup here. Okay, now that our y-axis is all referenced and everything here, our steps yet to do would be setting our y-axis work offset and checking our backlash on this, and then running your blade offset cut and your TPC square. We do have separate videos for that linked below that can help you with that if you need. Otherwise, if you got that all done, then you are welcome to put your machine, your guards and your bellows back on the machine, and you should be good to run then. As always, give our customer service department a call if you have any questions, and we'd be glad to help. Thank you.